I still remember the exact moment my world shattered. It wasn't when Laura first cheated. No, it was when I watched my 5-year-old daughter's eyes fill with tears as her mother forced her to practice lies about me. "Daddy scares me when he yells," Lily repeated mechanically, her small voice trembling. "Good, but remember to look down when you say it, like you're afraid," Laura coached, not noticing me standing in the doorway of our daughter's bedroom. "And if they ask you if Daddy ever hurt you, what do you say?" Lily's chin quivered. "I don't want to say that, Mommy." Laura's voice hardened. "Lily, we talked about this. Daddy doesn't love us anymore, and this is how we stay together, just you and me." "But Daddy does love—" The sharp sound of Laura's hand slamming against the bedside table made both Lily and me flinch. "Again, Lily. From the beginning." I backed away silently, my heart hammering in my chest. 4 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, and endless love, all meaningless to the woman coaching our daughter to destroy me. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And Laura had no idea who she was up against. "My name is Ethan Mercer. Until 6 months ago, I was just a software engineer with a comfortable life in the suburbs of Boston. I worked for a mid-sized tech company developing security applications, made decent money, and came home every night to what I thought was a loving family. My wife Laura and I met in college. She was studying marketing. I was in computer science. We weren't college sweethearts exactly. We ran in the same circles but didn't start dating until our senior year. After graduation, we both landed good jobs, got married 3 years later, and had Lily shortly after. I was never the flashy type. I drove a sensible car, saved aggressively for retirement, and focused on building security for our future. Laura used to appreciate that stability. At least, I thought she did. After Lily was born, we agreed Laura would take a year off. She went back to her marketing career afterward, climbing to an executive position at a boutique agency. I was proud of her, supporting her late nights and weekend work when needed. We were partners, or so I believed. When Laura was laid off a year ago during company restructuring, I told her to take her time finding the right next opportunity. "We're fine financially," I assured her. "Focus on what will make you happy." I even suggested she might enjoy spending more time with Lily, who had just started kindergarten. Laura seemed to embrace the change initially. She joined a gym, reconnected with old friends, and threw herself into home renovation projects. I never once questioned her about job hunting or pushed her to contribute financially. I wanted her to feel supported, not pressured. Looking back, that's when the subtle shifts began. She'd become irritated when I asked about her day. Our intimacy faded. She was always too tired or had a headache. She started going out more with friends I'd never met. I chalked it up to her rediscovering herself after the professional setback. I gave her space, thinking that's what a good husband would do. What I didn't know was that one of these new friends was Damon Caldwell, a divorce attorney known for his ruthless tactics. I didn't know that while I worked overtime to ensure our financial security, Laura was finding my steady, responsible life increasingly suffocating. I didn't know that she looked at our mortgage-free home, my growing retirement accounts, and our daughter as assets to be divided rather than a life we'd built together. I didn't know that the woman I kissed goodbye each morning was meticulously constructing my downfall. The first red flag came from Harper, our occasional babysitter. A graduate student in child psychology, Harper had been watching Lily for almost 2 years whenever Laura and I had evening commitments. She was reliable, responsible, and Lily adored her. One evening after returning home, I was surprised to find Harper waiting for me alone. Laura had texted that she was running late from a networking event. "Mr. Mercer," Harper said hesitantly as I paid her, "I'm not sure how to say this, but I'm concerned about some things Lily has been saying." My stomach dropped. "What things?" Harper shifted uncomfortably. "She told me that her mom makes her practice saying scary things about you. When I asked what she meant, she said she has to remember her lines about how you throw things and yell at her. Harper's eyes met mine. I've been watching Lily for 2 years, Mr. Mercer. I've never seen you do anything remotely like that. I felt sick. Does Lily seem afraid of me? No, that's just it. She seemed confused and upset about having to say those things, not about you. Harper reached for her bag. I'm sorry, but I don't think I can continue working here. Something doesn't feel right and I don't want to be involved. After Harper left, I sat in the dark living room, processing what I'd heard. I recalled other small incidents, Laura suddenly taking phone calls in another room, the strange way she'd sometimes record our arguments, her new password on her laptop. Each isolated event seemed innocent enough, but together they formed a disturbing pattern. When Laura finally came home that night, her cheeks flushed and smelling faintly of unfamiliar cologne, I didn't confront her. Instead, I kissed her on the cheek and told her Harper had left early. I mentioned nothing about what Harper had shared. That night, while Laura slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. I wouldn't react emotionally. I wouldn't give her ammunition. I would find out exactly what I was dealing with, and I would protect my daughter at all costs. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. As soon as Laura left to drop Lily at school, I began my counterintelligence operation. I installed discrete cameras in our common areas, not the bedrooms or bathrooms. I still had some ethical boundaries, and set up monitoring software on our shared family computer. I made copies of all our financial documents and secured them in a safety deposit box Laura didn't know about. Then I made 2 crucial phone calls, one to Thomas Webb, a private investigator recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a similar situation, and another to Dr. Eleanor Chen, a child psychologist specializing in parental alienation cases. I need hard evidence, I told Webb. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes. And you're sure your wife is manipulating your daughter? Dr. Chen asked during our consultation. No, I answered honestly. I'm not sure of anything right now. That's why I need your professional assessment. If I'm wrong, I'll drop everything. But if I'm right, if Laura is coaching Lily to lie about me, I need to know how to protect my daughter. Over the next 2 months, I lived a double life. On the surface, I was the same reliable Ethan, going to work, coming home on time, playing with Lily, and maintaining a cordial relationship with Laura. I didn't rock the boat. I didn't give her any reason to suspect I knew something was wrong. Meanwhile, Webb was building a case. He documented Laura's networking events, which turned out to be rendezvous with Damon Caldwell at various hotels around the city. He obtained copies of text messages between them, discussing their relationship and, more disturbingly, their strategy for the divorce. She's laying groundwork for an emotional abuse claim, Webb told me, showing me screenshots. Caldwell's advising her on how to document everything, how to provoke reactions from you, what to tell friends about your controlling behavior. One text from Laura to Damon chilled me to the bone. He has no idea what's coming. By the time he figures it out, I'll have the house, most of his retirement, and full custody. Your strategy is brilliant. Dr. Chen, meanwhile, had been meeting with Lily under the guise of a school readiness evaluation that Laura readily agreed to. There are concerning signs of coaching, she reported after several sessions. Lily exhibits distress when discussing certain topics about you, but the distress doesn't match the content. It's consistent with a child who's being pressured to maintain a narrative she knows isn't true. As the evidence mounted, I maintained my composure. When Laura would try to provoke arguments, leaving cabinet doors open after I'd asked her repeatedly to close them, accidentally deleting shows I'd recorded, making passive-aggressive comments about my work hours, I refused to take the bait. When she recorded our conversations, I made sure to remain calm and reasonable. I became the most understanding, patient version of myself, all while preparing to end her. The breaking point came when I overheard Laura on the phone with what I assumed was Damon, discussing filing dates and custody arrangements. "The documentation is practically perfect," she said smugly. "I've got recordings, witness statements from friends, and Lily's testimony will be the final nail. We should file next week before he suspects anything." That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of Laura using our daughter as a weapon against me, forcing a 5-year-old to lie about her father, filled me with a cold fury I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting Lily from psychological damage that could affect her for life. I got up at 3 a.m. and went to my home office, closing the door quietly. I reviewed everything Webb and Dr. Chen had provided. The evidence was overwhelming. Laura and Damon were not just having an affair, they were conspiring to destroy me legally and financially while traumatizing my daughter in the process. I had a decision to make. I could confront Laura, but that would give her time to cover her tracks and accelerate her plans. I could try for a quiet, amicable divorce, but her actions had gone too far for that. No, there was only one path forward that would protect both Lily and myself. Laura wanted a legal battle? I'd give her one, but not on her terms. I spent the rest of the night outlining my strategy. By morning, I had my plan. I called Webb and Dr. Chen to set things in motion. Then I called my attorney, Gabriel Santos, a quiet, methodical man with 20 years of family court experience. "This is going to get ugly," he warned after reviewing my evidence. "It already is," I replied. "I just want to make sure the right person pays for it." The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Webb continued his surveillance, documenting every meeting between Laura and Damon. Dr. Chen prepared her report on the psychological manipulation of Lily. I tracked down Harper, who agreed to testify about what she'd witnessed. Gabriel filed for an emergency hearing based on parental alienation and psychological abuse of a minor. Most importantly, I made sure Laura had no idea what was coming. I maintained our routine, even agreeing when she suggested we try couples counseling. Another ploy to document my supposed instability, I later learned. I kissed her goodbye each morning and told her I loved her, knowing these would be the last normal days of her life. The day before Laura planned to file her fraudulent divorce papers, Gabriel submitted our petition to the court. Laura was served with papers that afternoon while I was at work. When I came home that evening, she was waiting in the kitchen, her face a mask of fury and panic. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, throwing the papers at me. I picked them up calmly. "Exactly what it looks like. I'm filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and parental alienation, and I'm seeking full custody of Lily." Laura's laugh was harsh. "You'll never get it. I have recordings, testimonies. Everyone will see what you really are." I set my bag down and looked her directly in the eyes. "No, Laura. Everyone is going to see what you really are." I pulled out my phone and played a recording, her coaching Lily to lie about me. The color drained from her face. "You can't use that. It's illegal to record someone without their consent." "Actually," I replied, "Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for recordings." But that's beside the point. This isn't my recording. I pointed to the corner of Lily's room visible in the video. "That's from the cameras you set up in our house, the ones you thought I didn't know about. The same cameras that captured you admitting to Damon that you were manufacturing evidence." For once, Laura was speechless. "Lily is staying with my parents tonight," I continued. "I suggest you use this time to reconsider your strategy. Because if you push forward with these false accusations, I promise you, it will be the biggest mistake of your life." I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her staring at the papers. As I packed an overnight bag for myself, I could hear her frantically calling Damon. Their perfect plan was unraveling, and they knew it. The mediation hearing was scheduled for the following week. I spent the intervening days with my parents and Lily, shielding her from the chaos as much as possible. Laura tried repeatedly to contact Lily, but after consulting with Dr. Chen, we limited their communications to supervised video calls. On the day of the hearing, I arrived early with Gabriel. We had prepared meticulously, organizing our evidence and witnesses in the most devastating sequence possible. Laura and Damon arrived together, a tactical error that wasn't lost on the judge, a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for zero tolerance for parental alienation. Laura played her role perfectly at first, tearful, frightened, claiming she'd fled with Lily to my parents' house out of fear for their safety. Damon presented their fabricated evidence, edited recordings of arguments, testimonials from friends Laura had misled, and documentation of my controlling behavior. When they finished, Laura shot me a triumphant look across the courtroom. She thought she'd won. Then Gabriel began our presentation. First came the unedited recordings, showing how Laura had selectively cut my responses to make normal conversations seem threatening. Next came Webb's surveillance evidence, photos, videos, and hotel receipts documenting Laura's affair with Damon. Webb himself testified about witnessing them discussing their strategy to destroy me financially. Laura's face grew increasingly pale, but the real devastation came when Gabriel called Harper to the stand. The young woman walked confidently to the front of the courtroom, her professional demeanor adding weight to her testimony. "Ms. James, can you describe what you witnessed while babysitting for the Mercer family?" Gabriel asked. Harper recounted in clinical detail how she'd observed Laura coaching Lily to lie about me. She described Lily's distress and confusion, and then she played the recordings she'd made during her final weeks in our home, recordings that captured Laura's cold manipulation of our daughter. "I began recording because I was concerned about potential child abuse," Harper explained. "As a student of child psychology, I recognized the signs of psychological manipulation, and I was ethically obligated to document it." The courtroom fell silent as Laura's voice filled the room. "Once the court sees how scared Lily is, Ethan's done. Damon says it's a guaranteed win." Laura jumped to her feet. "That's taken out of context." The judge gavelled her down sharply. "Ms. Mercer, you will have your chance to respond." But Laura's composure was cracking. She looked desperately at Damon, who was suddenly very interested in his legal pad. The final blow came from Dr. Chen, who presented her professional assessment of the psychological damage Laura's coaching had inflicted on Lily. "This is a textbook case of parental alienation syndrome," she testified. "The child is being forced to reject a loving parent based on false narratives, causing significant emotional distress and potential long-term psychological harm." When all our evidence had been presented, the judge called a brief recess. Upon returning, her face was grim. "In my 30 years on the bench," she began, "I have rarely seen such a calculated attempt to manipulate the court and, more disturbingly, to weaponize a child against a parent. The evidence presented today shows a pattern of deliberate deception and psychological abuse that this court cannot ignore." Her ruling was swift and comprehensive. I was granted sole legal and physical custody of Lily. Laura's visitation rights were suspended pending a psychological evaluation and completion of a parenting course on child psychological welfare. The judge also referred Damon to the State Bar Association for an ethics investigation regarding his role in fabricating evidence. As the judge delivered her verdict, Laura collapsed into sobs. Not the controlled, performative tears she'd used earlier, but harsh, ugly cries of someone watching their life implode. Damon was already walking away, not even looking back at the woman he'd promised to help. But the court ruling was just the beginning of Laura's downfall. News of the case spread quickly through legal and parenting circles. Someone had recorded Laura's meltdown in the courtroom and leaked it online. The clip went viral, picked up by local news outlets and parenting forums with headlines like "Mother Caught Coaching Child to Lie About Father" and "Attorney and Client Conspire to Fabricate Abuse Claims." Laura's social media accounts were flooded with outrage. Former colleagues distanced themselves publicly. Friends who had provided testimonials for her case backtracked, claiming they'd been misled. Even her parents issued a statement expressing their profound disappointment in their daughter's actions and offering their full support to me and Lily. Meanwhile, Damon's legal career imploded. The Bar Association launched a formal investigation, and his firm placed him on indefinite leave. Former clients began reviewing their cases, looking for similar ethical violations. Within weeks, he'd left the state entirely, abandoning Laura to face the consequences alone. I didn't actively participate in Laura's public shaming. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself, and people made their own judgments. My focus remained on helping Lily heal from the psychological manipulation she'd endured. Through it all, I maintained my composure. I didn't gloat or seek revenge beyond what was necessary to protect my daughter. When reporters sought comments, I gave only brief statements about focusing on Lily's well-being. I engaged a therapist for both Lily and myself, making sure we had the tools to process the trauma healthily. 3 months after the hearing, Laura's transformation was complete. She'd lost her friends, her reputation, and her financial security. The divorce settlement left her with only what she'd brought into the marriage, which, after a year of unemployment, wasn't much. She was living in a small basement apartment across town, working an entry-level customer service job, her dreams of luxury and status thoroughly shattered. Damon, I heard through legal circles, had relocated to Arizona and was struggling to rebuild his practice under the cloud of ethical violations. The few clients who followed him quickly abandoned ship when news of his tactics spread through the legal community. His wife filed for divorce after learning of his affair with Laura. As for me, I stayed in our family home with Lily, creating a stable, loving environment where she could recover from her mother's manipulation. I arranged for supervised visits with Laura as required by the court, always putting Lily's needs first, despite my personal feelings. Today marks 1 year since that court hearing. Lily is thriving in first grade, her nightmares about saying the right things long gone. She sees Dr. Chen monthly for check-ins, but the psychologist reports she's adjusted remarkably well. Laura has completed her court-ordered therapy and parenting classes. She's been granted limited supervised visitation rights, which she exercises inconsistently. Sometimes I think she avoids seeing Lily out of shame for what she did, or perhaps because she can't stand the supervision. Whatever her reasons, I remain civil and accommodating for Lily's sake. I've started dating again recently. Nothing serious, just casual dinners with a colleague who understands my priorities as a single father. Life has settled into a new normal, one built on honesty and stability rather than manipulation and lies. As for Laura, last I heard, she was still in that basement apartment, still single, still struggling to rebuild any semblance of her former life. Damon has apparently stopped returning her calls entirely. The draft custody affidavit they wrote together, the one outlining how they would take everything from me, sits in an evidence box at my attorney's office, a reminder of how thoroughly their plan backfired. Sometimes at night, when Lily is asleep and the house is quiet, I think about how differently things might have turned out if I'd reacted emotionally instead of strategically. If I'd confronted Laura at the first sign of betrayal, she might have accelerated her plans or covered her tracks more carefully. If I'd lashed out in anger, I might have given her the ammunition she needed to paint me as unstable. But I didn't. I stayed calm. I gathered evidence. I built an irrefutable case. And when the moment came, I delivered justice in the most complete and devastating way possible, by simply exposing the truth. Laura tried to destroy me through deception, using our innocent daughter as a weapon. She failed not because I fought fire with fire, but because I refused to play her game at all. While she was busy constructing elaborate lies, I was documenting the simple truth. In the end, that was all I needed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about what you do to someone else. It's about what you refuse to let them do to you. And sometimes, justice doesn't need your help. It just needs your patience. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.